And today we bringing you another spicy topic. This one's got Chris. He said some words that we won't say here in this video.
This one's been fermenting.
This is definitely like hit a note with him. So just to kind of summarize it for you guys, Chris, why don't you tell us what we're about to embark on, because this is a spicy topic.
Yes. Yes, and because we're trying to get more in the habit of a little bit of self-promo at the beginning of every video, we are giving away a copy of the complete edition of Final Fantasy XIV on the 31st, thanks to Gabriel, and then starting on the 1st, we're going to be giving away Lunar Whale coasters on stream, possibly some more things to come, so come hang out with us on stream Monday through Friday, 8 to 2 CST. Thank you, Crap Post 14, for once again delighting my day. I woke up to checking Reddit and all the other social medias in the morning, and it said, I found this great community, by the way, and now know the reason that we are good at 14 is because we're losers in real life. That is the title of the Reddit post, and it is referring to a Guardian article by Eleanor Robertson from 2018 that says, I don't want to get good at gaming. I want to escape the relentless pressure to improve myself. And the subtext there that they have decided is their subtitle is, I enjoy video games. I'm not good at playing them, and I don't want to be. And so this is where the Crap Post 14 community, which can sometimes be associated with toxic elitism, runs into an article that self-proclaims to be toxic casualism. And so they are going to collide into each other. And even though there's 2 years of distance between them, none of that matters, because this is just so far to one side.
So let's spend some time with this article, guys. As always, with any article we reference, we'll always include links in the description. If you go and decide to kind of be vocal about this outside of our comment section, always try to remember to be respectful to anybody. who's written any kind of articles, even if we don't agree with their opinion. But anyhow, let's go ahead and dive into the meat. Chris, why don't you take us through the article?
It's great that the Guardian comes this game. That is a major press outlet. It's incredibly important that this game can get mainstream support. I am thrilled, and it didn't cover this game particularly. It was covering the concept, but like gaming being covered in the Guardian is a good thing. So thank you for the article in advance. I strongly disagree with the particular opinion you have. So
thanks for posting. Your opinion is
thank you for posting. Here comes my disagreement. So, like a lot of idiots with nothing better to do, I enjoy playing video games.
I didn't even read any of this. I was like,
you didn't read any of it.
I literally have it up on my screen, and I'm just like, oh, there's pretty flowers. I'm being advertised to you. You can't see the pretty flowers right now.
Everything you enjoy in life is stupid, Brian. So, like a lot of idiots with nothing better to do, I enjoy playing video games. This is a recent development. During my childhood, we didn't have enough money for a Nintendo, and my parents were deeply suspicious of them. Anyway, rightfully so, given that my sister and I are both what you might call indoorsy types, if you were being really polite. I enjoy video games, but I'm not good at playing them. I lack certain gamers' intuition. Is this wall going to be breakable? Which path is the game trying to lead me down? If I dive into this lake, am I going to find a box of treasure or immediately drown and have to watch a cutscene of my character's inert corpse being ripped apart by writhing fish monsters? I also seem to be terrible at distinguishing individual elements in most computer-generated landscapes, and it takes me a lot of squinting and screaming, what is this, to figure out which a jumble of prisms is the lever I'm supposed to.
I want to jump in here because what they're describing right here is actually very common. One of the things that we've actually seen in studies within just kind of like the computer programming and mathematics world is that there was actually a period of time where we saw a big dip in female people working within this space in college and beyond, while they excelled up to a point. And what it turned out in likelihood, a lot actually had to blame Nintendo on. When the big crash of the 80s happened, the Nintendo had to pick if they weren't advertising themselves as a computer, they were advertising themselves as a toy. And in the aisles, toy aisles, they were separated by boys and girls, and they picked boys. And so there was actually the sense of people were going into a certain degree, like in high school or into college, and there was this baked inherent knowledge that all of a sudden everybody had, and there was a group, in this case female, that didn't have that inherent knowledge because they weren't taking apart their Nintendos. They weren't playing these games. And so what she's describing here is actually very common if you didn't grow up with it. So it's very easy to kind of dismiss that knowledge.
I've met guys that didn't grow up with it that have the same lack of click the box, does the thing.
Correct.
Right?
It's that experience.
Something, exclamation marks mean something, glowing means something. Platformers move left to right, and it's disconcerting when they move the other way. All these just baked in
experiences that we've all shared.
Just aware of. Yeah. Right? That when you get handed a joystick for the first time, the move from one joystick from 64 to two joystick was stark for me. But now it's totally fine.
Did you ever have your
that's just a you know.
Did you ever have your mom like play or your dad play?
And stuff, so just be aware at this point if you have the volume on. So, while playing, I'm usually lucky if I can go an hour without getting stuck on one pixel of ledge space where moving an inch will mean falling to my death and having to repeat the last half hour because I forgot to save the game. In these situations, I usually Google around for solutions. If the game is popular or a couple years old, there invariably have been people trying to get out of the same tricky spot. The other invariable part is, for that one reason, and often many, the replier to the asker is just get good. Get good. This basically means try harder, you lazy piece of shit. Or, if you're reading it very generously, you can do it, mate. Keep pouring hours of your finite existence on this earth into achieving this millisecond perfect muscle twitch reaction that will enable you to beat this cartoon nemesis that looks like a cross between a bedbug and a rum ball. I find this response baffling. I don't want to get good at video games. I play video games purely for escapist reasons, and part of what I'm trying to escape is the relentless pressure to improve myself. If I wanted to develop a new skill, or increase my tolerance for repeated failure, or become more resilient, I'd just put down the controller and engage in the rest of my hyper-competitive way of life, in which complacency puts you on the breadline and contentment is something you can only experience vicariously through looking at pictures of cats lying in the sun. This that paragraph, that last paragraph right there, is the single most revealing paragraph of this entire book. The idea that getting good at a game is in lieu of getting good at something else.
Yeah.
Every time I improve at a video game, I am actively taking brain power that I should have shut down the game and gone and learned a language or a skill that applied to me at work or something that matters, because games do not. Skills in games do not apply to the outside world. Mm-hmm. There is no improvement of motor skill function. There is no improvement of getting better at reading. There is no ability of getting better at gaining visual context clues, at learning the depth of emotions within the story of a video game. That there is nothing to be gained from video games. They are purely there as a form of entertainment, mindless entertainment. Even movies and music cannot challenge or grow us as human beings.
Right.
And that is incredibly insulting to an entire genre of art. It is incredibly insulting.
I didn't get anything from this Mona Lisa. It was a complete waste of my time.
I could have tried to get better at painting, but I decided to do something valuable. Like, it is incredibly dismissive. And I find this response baffling. In the previous paragraph is where it should have been a note of, I do not understand this other point of view. Mm-hmm. Stop there. Yeah. Not, I do not understand this point of view. Therefore, that entire point of view must be wrong. Correct. I have viewed all of the doors. I have picked the best door. It is the only good door. And by going through it, all other doors must suck. It's incredibly dismissive. There's a name for a frustrating difficulty activity you undertake on a regular basis in order to hit arbitrary KPIs. Work. So much online gaming culture seems to consist of treating games like work. Maybe this is because about 2/5 of people think their actual job adds nothing to the world and leave them given tomorrow. This relationship between increasingly meaningless work and increasingly work-like video games is well illustrated in releases like Farming Simulator, an American Truck Simulator, which allow you to experience the insane thrills of having a middle-of-the-road job.
Man, what an insult to farmers and truck drivers.
So very
I'm sorry you don't like to eat, lady, because
the single largest employer in America is driving a truck, by the way. So, cool. Small group of people, they're bound not to speak up. So there is
we know a truck driver. Anyway.
Bred into humans. Yeah. It's incredibly important, where we naturally have a desire to see something nurture and grow. It's what allows us to care for our children. It's what allows us to care for crops. It's what allows us to invest in something when the payoff will not be a substantial amount of time. As we've moved into a society where more and more things are automated, where we don't see where our food comes from or where the products we buy come from, we no longer see them as the response of a very long and arduous process. For something like the Suez Canal being blocked by a freighter, being 12% of the world's shipping, is an enormous issue. Yeah. There were times when ships had to go around the Horn of Africa. We can see a return to that. This digging doesn't quickly resolve that. It's a huge deal, but we don't see it. It's over there. Gosh, I went to the store and they were just out of shirts in my size. That's inconvenient. We don't see it. And games like this let that part of us out. It's why Farmville is incredibly successful. It's why games have retention mechanics like dailies. It's why we see growth of cosmetics. It's why those work, and whether you like them or don't like them, it's why that part of our lizard brain locks into games having that, because it rewards us for our loyalty. It rewards us in seeing growth of the character. It's one of the large appeals of RPG characters, that ongoing, I invested something so I have something.
This goes beyond just that, though, because when we start factoring in our digital selves, our digital lives, I was listening to a podcast today just talking about how, like, the government can, without warrants, track us in different ways. It was just utterly fascinating. And this isn't meant to, like, take that off into a discussion, but it's meant to say, like, tr- what would life be like without a cell phone? Like, just go do that. Go not have a cell phone in this world. You can completely choose that. But what does it cost? You have contacts and opportunities for work and opportunities to have all these services and conveniences and there's the increasing cost of it is exponential. And where 20 years ago, 40 years ago, having a cell phone, like, what was that? But now all of a sudden that is so important, and because of that, there's all these things. That also applies to our content creation. That also applies to ourselves on the internet as a part of our characters. A digital representation of either you, who you want to be, or who you aren't and don't want to be, but you just want to step into this play, right? Same thing with Farming Simulator, same thing with American Truck Simulator and things like that. Like, I want to be a farmer for a day. Like, this is like, you can step in and you can live in this thing. You can have a level of escapism, and then you can also have other types of experiences. There's multiple layers of types of movies. There's not just one genre movie. Oh, here's the one book that we all have read over and over again. You can have adventure books, you can have education books, you can have all of these things. And yeah, it's just, she's definitely leaning into the one note, like, either be productive or get out. Anyway.
And it's true of every hobby. There are people who work out well past the point of gaining a cardiovascular advantage, where you have people who are an accountant by daylight and are a competitive Spartan runner or CrossFitter on the weekends. My dad had a UPS man for years that is now semi-pro in the UFC style fights. He goes and does that for a living, and his UPS driver would show up with all these bruises and stuff because his hobby was fighting. And so there are people that take this past that degree. They have an interest in music where they play in a band at a coffee shop, and some people take that on the road. Some people go to trivia nights and they're interested in other people doing music, where their knowledge is not even how to do the music, it's just knowledge of other people having done it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And so having something where the stakes are lower is incredibly nice. Having something where I want to get better at a video game, and if I fail to get better tonight, it doesn't matter. When I go to work and I have to improve at something for my job is on the line. I have to learn that skill by a certain date, or I have to wait another year for my performance review, or I risk being cut in the next job cut, or I risk not getting a raise that makes a difference in my standard of living, and all that stuff matters. And so if you have a licensure or something like that you have to do for your job, that certificate, it's school, it's mandatory. And some people thrive in that atmosphere, but many people don't. And with video games, I just want to try to beat this hard level, and I'm going to try this week for an hour, and then I'm going to log out, and it doesn't matter. And I can feel like I'm improving, and I can also feel like it doesn't matter. And there's a beauty in having that halfway step between doing nothing and hard improving that video games, or whatever art form you're into, improve at. And just because somebody chooses to be on the hard end of optimizing, or says, you know what, I'm not really feeling like optimizing, there's not a wrong path unless you're actively ruining other people's, or going out to just tell other people their view is wrong when they're not doing anything to hurt anybody. Like, she's not saying, I don't like that people ruined my gameplay experience. She's implying anybody who clears Ultimate World firsts is a moron. So, she quoted a tweet that said, my age 10, video games should be cartoony and fun. My age 24, harvesting these virtual turnips simulates control I wish I had in my real life. And she said, this tweet displays a sense of self-awareness that is weirdly lacking in the legions of Get Good online posters. Rather than acknowledging the real-life deficits in meaning and achievement that make the productive approach to gaming such an enticing prospect, some gamers project this sense of shame onto other people who aren't as good as they are. That's much calmer than how she's previously said this.
Yeah.
So Nintendo thinks people are idiots and kids are too dumb to learn how to play. So they added an auto feature so you can watch the game play itself, grumbles poster Milky Trousers about a cruise control feature in Mario Kart. Newsflash, Milky Trousers, this is entertainment we're talking about. This is an object people purchase in order for it to provide them with a pleasurable experience. If someone wants to buy Mario Kart and set it up so that they get to sit there and watch the kart hard drive itself. Who cares? Imagine trying to explain to Max Weber that a crucial constituency left defending the maligned Protestant work ethic in the 21st century would be guys on gaming forums complaining that children don't spend enough time sitting in front of a TV. Why is this any more or less valuable than you quoting Max Weber? Why is displaying a greater amount of book knowledge that you will never use to help you shop at the grocery store, to help you optimize a TPS report? Like, why? Why is that better? Why is the fact that I can listen to a history podcast on a road trip any more valuable than sitting there playing on a Nintendo Switch? So on one hand, she's saying we should be tolerated as casual gamers. I'm a guy that spent 6.5 hours on a stream last night clicking a sign. That happened. I ran Circus Tower all day today. I should be allowed to be that casual. But the moment I log in on Tuesdays and I start uploading my parses to try to get better at the very same game, I'm wrong, and I am flocking that in the face of years of academic research that has said that we should be productive as a society, because I choose to put it towards something that doesn't immediately put brick and mortar into somebody living in a house. Like, that's just... If I'm going to enjoy the absurd capitalist soma of video games, the last thing I want to do is feel like I'm being badgered by a superior at a dead-end job. Don't take shortcuts. You need to upgrade your basic skills. Improve at the core mechanics through repetitive practice regimes, say so many gamers. All right, calm down, regional manager Gleb Flange. Nobody will ever be as good as you are at harvesting virtual turnips. Now let me get back to rotting my brain.
Like, at the core of it, that is such, I mean, that feels almost like a 90s viewpoint. That video games, like, yeah, anything can rot your brain. Anything in excess can essentially, like, too much TV. It's all about a balance, right? It's all about striking that aspect.
Watching
and
TV.
so if she, like, her, like, what you say, her most important statement was up there. She views video games as just like with that 90s mindset that this is complete, is pointless for the sake of pointless. That it's only hurting you, and essentially, like, okay, just like, oh, you know, I'd be very curious about her stance on recreational drugs in that regards, just because it's like, okay, like,
I mean, you're dyslexic, and you've told me a number of times that video games is what gave you the tool to read, and now you write and present code for a living. You run your own program company, you write your own code, you present that very academically to clients at a very high-end level in a field that matters.
Yeah, it actually gives me a competitive edge. Now, the dyslexia is still a thing that I struggle with on a day-to-day basis.
It
didn't fix that, but essentially it helped give me, it gives a lot of people, I think a lot of people go into programming, go with it in an interest to making video games. That's what I studied. That's what I studied in college. And that understanding game design actually has a direct correlation that improves application within business design. How do you make something rewarding and intuitive and allow them people to use it where it makes sense, and you want people to keep coming back, right? Because I don't want to make a one-use application that does the one thing. That's great, but how can I create this value in this sense that brings it in? And that's just called, it's just gamification. Game theory really comes into play, I think, and that's why I've always enjoyed working and hiring people out of the game industry, which I've done a couple times from Gearbox, because they're here in the area, and it's like at some point your project's done, so you always end up having these waves of programmers who are looking for work, and they were tired of that constant, here's work, oh, there's no work, oh, the game did well, oh, the game didn't do well. Like, you never really had some security. That's what actually prevented me, not prevented, it was my decision to not go into game design professionally, because it was like the ups and downs of the industry are too volatile, and I knew I wanted to be a dad. I knew I wanted, me and my wife wanted to have kids, and I wanted to be able to at least provide, it might not be like, oh my god, we just made enough money to last us 3 years in 1 month, but at least it's a consistent, steady flow that I know that we get paid tomorrow, we'll get paid the next.
Because you have other goals, right?
Yeah.
You also want to have kids and provide those kids with a stable life. Like, you can't just pursue the one note.
Correct.
I think video games for me was an escape to, and things could matter because I said they mattered. I was a B student in school, because anything above a B, I didn't see the point. I got it. I got the general idea. I don't need to perfect
His philosophy
and so
was savage rating
I
right
get
there.
to 85% and stop. And like, that's so much part of my, I do that in everything I do. I would rather experience 85% of all things than 100% of anything. That is just what I do. Like, that's how I knew the woman I wanted to marry. Not as some romantic awe statement, but it was the first person I'd ever met that I wanted to know 100% of. That's how I knew there was something different. And so, like, I just, the B student in me, then I played World of Warcraft, and to be a B student at top end rating, I found myself checking, creating my own spreadsheets. I found myself wanting to run pivot tables, checking DPS meters to get to the B level. And I found myself doing all these tools. Then I get out into the working world and somebody goes, hey, we have these 2 spreadsheets, and like, I don't know, would you mind manually checking them to see if there's any values different in these? Well, I'll just run a pivot table and just check them real quick. Well, I was just gonna assign each person like 100 to check. No, I can check all 4,000 in like 42 seconds.
Yeah.
What? I learned to do that because of World of Warcraft. This stupid skill that I have. And it moved me up in work. I knew so much more about things because using algebra, using Excel, using all these things, they mattered to me in a game because they resulted in something I cared about. So I didn't care about a higher test score. What does that get me? A shiny piece of loot? Oh yeah, I want that.
Absolutely.
And so, and that may be a stupid motivation. That may have been a stupid, childish thing that I still have. It's not a bad thing. And so I think my issue with this is that she says, hey, take note of us casuals. We're important. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, she's not
It's an
wrong.
incredibly big portion of gaming.
Yeah.
The escapism is an incredibly large portion. It's one of the reasons I don't play humans in games. People are like, why are you playing the Toke and the Torin and the Safari? And like, because I don't want to be human. I get to be human all day.
Yeah.
I
Have I ever
love
told
that.
you
I
Julie's
love
philosophy?
being in places that could not exist in real life.
Yeah. Julie's philosophy is to play the opposite of who she is. The short white girl, she'd play like a tall, like dark male or beastly race because it's like it's not. She wants to be represent herself differently in an online world because she can't. Like you have that freedom of expression. You know?
It's really, really hard to get taller and different skin toned in real life. There's probably an amount of money that does it.
Well, probably for me, like
real difficult. Definitely hard to change to a different species that's never existed. That one is also really tough. So like, I love the escapism aspect of gaming, but that doesn't mean there's no correlation. That doesn't mean when you learn the hobby, it's why things like sport and school districts, a lot of school districts, when I was in, if you weren't in a sport, they almost pushed you into being an orchestra because there's a skill in learning to do something with other people who you didn't think.
Yeah.
See in the outside world. It's an important part of school.
Yeah.
There is a skill in being told you need an piece of information you don't have, and knowing how to go to the internet or a library and source credible, reliable information. Not because you need to know who won some war in some distant country some number of years ago, but because the skill of pursuing and retaining that information is something you're going to have to do time and time again as an adult. So I just found that frustrating that she dismissed that sort of thing.
I had an unfortunate experience like with research when I was, growing up and things like that, where there was like active, like for whatever reason, I couldn't. Everything was always my fault. There was something like anything I would turn in, always difficult, always like this was like, and it's like and so my parents though would look at me like you're gonna have to you're gonna have a boss like that. You're gonna have a boss who just doesn't like you. And I ended up having a boss who didn't like me, but because of the life experience I had within an environment where it didn't matter, allowed me to be able to cope and work and actually get promoted over that said boss later on in life because of that experience. And at least I had that the parent guidance to say, okay, well, whatever, I quit. No, you can't quit school, and you could quit your job, but essentially it's like, okay, I know how to live in this situation. They don't like me, I don't know why. Sometimes you just can't fix that. Not everybody's gonna like everybody, and there might not be any real reason. It's just like, I don't like it. So it's like, was able to work through that situation and able to thrive because of it. So that's the thing. Her thesis here of like, there's nothing wrong with being casual. Like 14 wouldn't exist without casual. Casuals are a light load. That's why I always say that hardcore and casual actually have a symbiotic relationship. They need each other. And that's why whenever they fight over it, it's like, guys, you're hurting yourself. Like, stop hitting yourself. You want harder content, you need more casuals. In fact, one of the videos that we're going to have for you guys this week is what would 14 look like with WoW's budget. Yoshi P said it, and we're going to talk about that here later this week on the channel. So if you're still here, watching this video, hopefully you're excited about that video because it's an interesting discussion piece. How would we get there? Well, you know what? If we just had more, like, stop chasing away casuals, we need more of them, and then essentially maybe Square Enix could be able to up its budget, and we could get all kinds of things that we've been wanting and asking for. And the only
like
real
a second Ultimate,
like Savage Plus. I don't know. Yoshi P wants to do these things, but there's a real cost. There's a budgetary kind of concern, and how do we get there? Anyway, that's something we'll plan on talking about later this week. Chris, do you have any kind of final thoughts? Because, like, clearly,
no.
Either this person just had a really bad experience, or they just don't really understand gaming culture. And then when you start to weigh in on gaming culture, I just feel like they come off kind of ignorant, or essentially a kind of an elitist casual in that regards, a toxic
I think
casual.
they were told that video games are not as valuable as books as kids, based on the fact that they said they're indoorsy. And I know that when we weren't allowed to play games, we read a lot of books, and so my brothers are big readers. I was involved in sports, so I was outdoorsy in that way. I was in Boy Scouts. My brothers weren't in any of those things. They didn't want to be, and so my parents didn't force them to be. And so they're very indoorsy, and so if they didn't have video games as a big part of their life, books made up a huge portion of the rest. And so when you flex book knowledge and when you say video games are stupid, I think it just pushed further into that, right? It's that dessert you get to have after books, and going and working for a major
Okay, I just want to start this. I'm sorry, I don't like making negative videos, but I just don't like World of Warcraft. And I really want to talk about that because as I continue to play other games, I have to say that this experience has been by far one of the most bipolar that I've ever experienced in any online video game. And so let's set some context, guys. I did not play World of Warcraft back in the day. I don't have any fond memories of the past. I started my World of Warcraft journey here in 2020, and yes, that's not that far ago. In fact, right as BFA was ending and Shadowlands was beginning. Now, I enjoyed that time. That time was exciting. I was playing with friends, but as you could probably tell, that hasn't always been the case. I've often found myself continually over and over again having a very solo experience with World of Warcraft, and honestly, I think when I look back at it, the fact that I have no nostalgia, no history with this game, it honestly just kept me going, why am I playing? Is this an online game? Where did all my friends go? And so here I am making this frustrated video. My frustration being asking more questions than having answers. My frustration being that this is a rant. This is what is wrong with the state of WoW, and why, as a new player, as a player who's come into a new game experience, I can tell you hands down, the lowering to level 60 was a welcome invitation. It was like, oh, okay, the levels felt meaningful, the experience felt rewarding. And then at the core of it, shouldn't that be enough? And the answer for me, unfortunately, falls into no. It just is not enough. Friends and the community aspect of these games is what keeps me going, what keeps me playing. And the same, let's just sit here and level this all around. Same could even be applied to Final Fantasy XIV. Now you might be wondering, wait a minute, like, that's blasphemy, especially if you're a 14 player. But you'll see and you'll notice that I'm not actively playing new characters all the way going through ARR as a solo experience. I'm playing with friends and I'm having great conversations. Now we're going to get a little bit into that later in this video as a content creator, because I think when I look at this situation, when I analyze my relationship with World of Warcraft, and maybe even to a slight degree the state of MMOs, I go, why are we having these solo experiences? I'm not sitting here advocating for a return to the golden days of the MMO where you wasted hours trying to find people, and then when you did, you maybe had a good experience and maybe had a bad experience, and then years went by and you wiped out all those bad experiences from your memory, and then you only remembered the really good times, the friend times, the relationships that were built. So I'm approaching this actually more from a software engineer perspective, and really hopefully asking some questions that if you have the answers, I'd love to know. But why am I playing World of Warcraft by myself? Why are we playing MMOs by ourselves? And there's the star, the asterisk to this entire statement. As a content creator, I'm often not playing these online games by myself. Communities find, players find my content. We end up, engaging in the comments. We end up either basically you writing me off as some kind of hack, or you're interested and you stick around with my community and we get to know each other and we get to play games together. So I'm also speaking from a position in which that, privilege applies to some of the games. And that's why World of Warcraft is such a contradiction to my experience. And not am I asking you to come and play WoW with me. I tell you this right now because I had such a sense of relief when I unsubscribed from the game. And that's what was the catalyst to this video. I've been mulling this over all weekend while I play other games. Games like Guild Wars, games like Final Fantasy, games like Outriders. And all these games have something that when I touch the game themselves, it sounds weird, when I jump into the game itself and the gameplay, I'm immediately hooked. Now let's talk about my Final Fantasy bias. I'm not bashing on WoW because I like Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy has some of the same, if not different kind of problems, but all related to the theme and the thematic connection together. But I have nostalgia for Final Fantasy XIV. I have that relationship with that game going on for all the way back to even in Final Fantasy XI. So I am completely biased in that aspect. And so I look at that and I say, hey, the reason why I let this slide in Final Fantasy, but I'm sitting here frustrated about it in World of Warcraft, is because I have a history with that game. Now, I'm sure lots of players out there have lots of history. WoW is and has been the pinnacle. I've often said that there's no such thing as a WoW killer. WoW ultimately will kill itself if left to its own devices, or gamers essentially, as gamers will optimize the fun out of anything. It's another awesome phrase that I tend to enjoy. But let's shift back to my experience with WoW and my experience overall with what I hope to be kind of the future of MMOs. I don't know what WoW could do. I cannot sit here and say, yeah, back in Legion, back in pre-Cataclysm, like it was really good then. Like, because they even have Classic. I've gone and I've touched Classic, and for the offering of what one WoW subscription gets you, there's value there. You're not having fun in what they call retail, fine, go play Classic. You're not having fun in Classic, well, guess what? There's a new update in retail. In all honesty, it's a heck of a business deal. It's a heck of an offering for things to do. I'm not looking for just things to do, and that's where the whole friend game is the true end game, is my opinion about how these games function. And so I'm left wondering as an engineer, why have we not fixed this problem? And not fixed it by going backwards to shouting in cities, not having to connect with having to work with other players, because that's just not going to work. These games don't exist in a bubble. If you go and turn off these conveniences, you're going to see massive moving of the population. You're also going to see some positive things too. So let's not sit here and say it's a be-all, end-all. But these systems have come with a price. And it's that question that continues to that I ponder in my mind. Why haven't we fixed or solved, or at least attempted to solve, the problems that come with this anonymity, with this sense of, I don't need you, is a common term. Like, you don't really need that other person. You need a body. But they could as easily just be some kind of AI NPC, and it really wouldn't make that much of a difference to the normal or average or maybe end game player. So here we are. Now, I think it's interesting because other games have seemed to solve this. I've been talking about Gears 5, and yes, you might not be aware of that game. I am a huge Gears fan. I really enjoyed that series. But in 5, when you would play with friends, you'd get experience and you'd level up your friendship. I hear the same kind of system exists in something like Persona. Something like Persona, you level up your friendship level. So I'm asking, like, why aren't we incentivizing people to form guilds, to form these systems, to level up their friendship levels in ways that allows them to connect and form these bonds, so that essentially you don't necessarily need that person but that person doesn't necessarily come with a burden of teaching, a burden of reaching out. It's the same concept and the same issues that I've seen in Final Fantasy. And this is something that I want to work on for kind of a more detailed video later down the line. Something as I kind of resurrect a series called State of the Game, but that's neither here nor there. Why don't I take the time, and this isn't like actually me speaking, I'm just speaking more in general, because this is the common conversation we keep having here on the internet. Why don't I take time to connect with my fellow players? They're either going to always slow me down, you know, I don't want to make that extra step, don't want to take the risk. So, what solves that? And that's the general question that I have for you. These are unscripted little conversations. I call them coffee chats. This is just me frustrated at the state. It's frustrated by logging into a game that's considered the biggest MMO of all time, and there's nothing massive about it in that multiplayer sense. Maybe the land masses are massive, but playing through Shadowlands, especially coming off of BFA, it feels like a step backwards. And I know how, because I'm on the internet, how people received BFA. People will say there's fundamental problems with BFA. Okay, so what's the Shadowlands excuse? You wanted a story-driven narrative? Why don't you just go play a single-player story-driven narrative game? Not that these games can't have story, but I think that it's so frustrating because I'm trying to. I tried. I gave it everything I had. And it just didn't come together. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't know who the characters were. And a lot of that I'm putting on me. The problem might not be with WoW or with Blizzard, but probably with me. So for all the time they spent with the new player experience, like that, I even played with friends. And as soon as they left, it just became a massive challenge, a massive undertaking, and it was relieving to unsubscribe. And I know I've covered that, but I'm going to kind of put this final thought here for you guys if you're still hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Okay. I think it's time that these MMOs, these games that we love or we would love to see return to prominence, I think their integrations have to go wide. I think accessibility will end up being a real savior. Now, it's not the be-all end-all. This isn't a silver bullet fix for the genre. But these games really need to integrate more with services like Discord or other ways of communication so that essentially, as a player, if I am sitting here playing World of Warcraft, somebody could see that I'm playing it, right-click on me if my permissions are set up in this way, and they could just say, join Brian in game, and all of a sudden, boom. So whether I'm a content creator or not, and that's really kind of where I'm coming from, putting myself as a non-content creator. You don't see much WoW coverage. I was working on some guides. I really was like, yeah, like, okay, I love controllers. That's kind of a thing. They added controller support. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe I'll jump in now and really enjoy it. And it's not. Like, adding controller support and what they've done is a big step in the right direction in terms of accessibility. But we got to think integration. We got to think within the system games itself to incentivize giving players, even loosely connected players, benefits for playing together. I've said this even about Final Fantasy 14. Like, I queue up for content, quote unquote, running that content, and then I leave that content and have no connection with those that I was there with. But what if that was different? What if I was playing and that was the 15th time, the 30th time, hell, the second time that I've run that content with somebody, that I saw that individual? And it really clicks to me when I actually see in 14 somebody's name tag that's colored differently because they're on my friends list. And I go, why isn't the core system of this game doing that? Why do we have to rely on these third-party tools to kind of help out and facilitate these conversations? Why? And this is why we've seen such a gravitation towards content creation and creators as kind of both community leaders, but as a way of finding communities to play with. We've let the games sit on their hands, sit on their laurels, not innovate in ways, and so gamers have found a way. And it's those that don't get connected into communities. It's those that don't go above and beyond. It's gamers like me, in the case of WoW, playing it as a single solo player game and wondering, what am I doing here? Why am I spending this time with this game? And the answer is, I'm not. I'm going to move on, and so I have. So I'm just another number. I'm just another cog in the machine. I'm just another player with an experience, and I just find it interesting because those who have that nostalgia, they say, okay, it'll get better. It has dips. Okay, I can't even seem to clear the main campaign. And so I'm sure there's probably things that I might enjoy about the game. But, and this goes to 14, this goes to games too, and I'm going to change how I recommend 14 to players going forward based off of this experience alone. I shouldn't have to say it gets worth it later for a game. That's unexcusable. It gets better when X. Now, it's got to be good now. Doesn't mean every second has to be mind-blowingly awesome. Humans can't handle that. You need ebbs and flows. But games have to be good now, and I cannot help but wonder if Blizzard has the balls, the chutzpah, the guts, the courage to take WoW where it needs to go. And I think it needs an evolution. I would love to see them unshackle themselves from history, and who knows, like people that I was talking to about this very subject before, finally just like, I gotta yeet out into the void for a minute. They're saying, hey, there could be a time jump after Shadowlands. Could be a good opportunity. I don't know. Redo the engine, have a whole new chapter 3 of the game itself. I mean, it makes sense, right? When you think about it. You have pre-cataclysm, you have post-cataclysm, you have post-cataclysm. Could be something exciting, could be something interesting. At the end of the day, if you're enjoying the game, I should have probably opened with this. If you're enjoying the game, who gives a crap what I say? I'm not sitting here trying to say that you have to agree with me. That's not the goal of my content here. It's just to have these conversations. I'd love to know your thoughts as always, but I'm going to wrap up. Thanks, guys, for listening to, a gamer ranting about a game. While not in this case drinking coffee because it's late, but it's still the idea. Just see the option below. For MMOs as a genre, for action, or multiplayer RPGs as a genre. Lots of exciting stuff this year, like I said. Hello, thanks so much for checking out my channel, Ginger Prime. My name is
Beyond the pages of our times and the charts of our lands, Hydaelyn was yet a world forged by the cycle of ages, by wars and alliances, civilizations and calamities, heroes and villains, known only to us in the margins of lore. From desperate revolts against an empire of death, veiled plots between megalomaniac magi, impossible tales of survival amidst realms of ruin, and incredible odysseys across time and space. These are stories that will no longer remain untold. So I bid you join us as we cast our dice across the spinner's stand, for this day a new legend awaits. been decimated, and much of the Crimson Fleet sunk by the storms and debris of the calamity. Desperate to reclaim their settlements and outposts before the Beastmen can, Admiral Merlib has compelled the privateer factions to assist, and once more reached out to a mercenary company that had served her well in years past. A partially reformed criminal trained in the sect of Shadow, a disgraced and jaded former soldier, and a famous goblin of fortune now embark on a journey that will shape the future of Limsa Lominsa in the company of heroes. Hello everyone! Hello and welcome to the pilot for Dungeons & Dravanians, a series of standalone one-shot adventures exploring key historical events in Eorzea and beyond in the canon of Final Fantasy XIV through the vehicle of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and the homebrew Final Fantasy XIV companion guide designed by Sorensen Asgard. If you have not played or are otherwise not entirely familiar with the rules of Dungeons & Dragons, don't worry about it. You're not alone. Everything will be as clear and approachable as we can make it. And if you are a Dungeons & Dragons fan, unfamiliar with the world of Final Fantasy XIV, you don't need to worry about that either. Enjoyment of this adventure, it'll benefit from some knowledge of Final Fantasy XIV lore, but I am confident that it will also stand just fine on its own. So, with that said, I will be your Dungeon Master, Ethos Asher, and tonight I'm joined by our first of hopefully many special guest parties that will be leading the action. We have Mr. Happy, Sly AK Grey Fox, and Leek Wibble. I will allow our players to introduce themselves and their characters in a moment, but first, right at the top, I want to thank Tabletop Audio and Epidemic Sound for the music and ambience we'll be hearing, as well as Calico Arucado for a special surprise later in the evening, Leek herself for our incredible logo, my partner Talia for helping organize, get me on track, and of course to Soren for designing this excellent homebrew, for which you can find links in the chat or in the description below. Okay, let's meet our cast. Haps, you are playing a Hyur Highlander, Path of Ralga monk named Alfur Storm. How did Alfur come to be in the company of heroes?
Well, he was a young child living on the streets, never really knew his parents, and at one point he was trained by a wandering monk that he attempted to steal from.
Mm-hmm.
And with not getting too much into the minutia of that adventure, after his master died, he simply looked to help other people, coming from a place of, place of poverty, a place of always struggling himself. And that inevitably led him to the company of heroes, especially after the calamity had hit.
Okay. So you grew up on the streets of Ul'dah?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you still have something of a reputation that may or may not be earned for not being entirely scrupulous, maybe holding on to some of that criminality a little bit, perhaps?
Perhaps.
I suppose we'll see. Okay, cool. We also have Varen Miller, played by Sly, a Midlander Hyur soldier, a deliverance warrior on the path of deliverance, as it's described in the homebrew. How did Varen come to be with the company of heroes?
Well, after the calamity, he was a part of the Knights of the Barracuda.
Mm-hmm.
And after the calamity, he decided to kind of go AWOL and kind of do his own thing. He kind of took to training a little bit, and he was kind of tired of from the corruption he saw in the Knights, and he kind of did his own thing, like vigilante style. And one day he happened upon a member of the Kraken's Arm who happened to be murdering women. Like he was doing the whole serial killer thing. And
in Limsa Lominsa?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
And he long story short, he beheaded the dude. And he got thrown into jails by the Maelstrom.
Okay.
And Weescape found him, kind of like you said, Nick Fury style, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like we could use this for good. So I'm reluctantly joining Louisescape.
Okay. Sorry, I just bumped up your volume there a little bit. So I think if it's okay with you, this is actually going to be your first sort of mission with the Company of Heroes. What I'm imagining is really just this last night. You've had WizKate come to see you, and he's basically explained to you that Commodore Rayner still owes you a favor for some reason, and has basically decided to present you with the opportunity that since the Maelstrom is so undermanned at the moment, they really need like every able body on deck. There's absolutely no way that they can accept you back into what is now the Yellow Jackets, formerly the Knights of the Barracuda. But if you want to try and kind of work off your debt, as it were, you can basically help them through the Company of Heroes, working with the foreign levy underneath WizKate. So you've been bumped down from being a captain of what was it, the third levy?
Third levy.
Right. So you were the captain of the third levy of the first squadron in Galadian Bay.
Bay.
Yes. And you are now going to be a private of the Company of Heroes on your first expedition. Okay, cool. And finally, we have Leek Wibble playing Brayflox All Talks. How did Brayflox come to be with the Company of Heroes, Leek? I mean, we know a good bit about her background in lore and canon, but I think you can fill in some of the blanks for us and give us your spin on this character. I've been very excited to see it. What do you got for us?
Brayflox is fast joining the Company of Heroes as Shiny Brain hand grabber of Shiny Junk. Brayflox is also nifty quick at time tinker maker of fire booms.
Okay. Do we need a translation for that? Do you guys understand? You guys speak Gobby? Okay, cool. Brayflox, you have been with the Company of Heroes actually at the time that they were confronting Titan and Leviathan about 7 years ago, before the Calamity, I think. So you're actually quite a veteran. You've been around for a long time. You've seen a lot of things, and we're excited to have you on board to keep these two fresh-faced young heroes in check.
Indeed, Uplander is surely much grateful for Brayflox's present time. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. It's beautiful. Okay, so we are presently on board the flagship of the Kraken's Arms, the Misery. What's happened is we've just picked up Slime in Limsa Laminsa. You're sitting in there in your jail cell. WiseCate's come along and he said, look, you can either rot here or you can come along and help us try and rebuild Limsa and reclaim Lenosha. And he said basically, there'll be someone along tonight to see you and escort you if you've decided to come with us. What happened between there and now being on the deck of the flagship of the Kraken's Arms, the crew of this man that you executed in ostensibly cold blood?
Well, when WeSkate gives me the whole spiel, I just look at him with a straight face and tell him, fuck it, there's nothing else better to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys have been sailing for a couple of hours now. All you know is that you're on the way to Aleport because the company has basically been put under the command of the Foreign Levy to help reclaim Western Lenosha. Everyone had to evacuate during the Calamity, and it's been a couple of months now, and the concern is that if we don't start pushing back and taking these settlements, then the Kobolds will, the Sahuagin will, bandits will, maybe even the Garleans. We've seen, a little bit of stirring from the 14th Legion trying to take the opportunity to consolidate land that will eventually become castrums, as we know. You guys don't, but we do. So that's basically the plan. What I want to know is what you guys have been doing as we set forth. The Misery is a ship that can hold like a couple of hundred people, probably. At the moment, it's working with a skeleton crew of Carviane over here, and he's got 3 crewmen and a boxman, because every good ship needs a boxman. And that is it. He's got a lot of supplies below deck, and they are running back and forth, very, very busy trying to, take stock and have everything organized and, take care of all of the ship duties. But really, this would be kind of a job better for at least a dozen sailors that they're trying to handle really just with the 5 of them. So I'm wondering, are you guys helping out? Are you perhaps just below deck kind of getting ready for whatever's going to come next? How are you spending your time?
Varen is on the he's on the side of the deck, just peering out, minding his own business, not really giving a care for anyone around him.
Okay.
So he's just kind of peering out to see, just in reflection and thought.
Okay. All right.
I am just consoling my cat below deck because he does not like boats. Poor Aloha does not like the ocean.
Of
I
course.
don't have my actual Aloha, so this Paisa will have to do.
Of course, we should have mentioned. We should have mentioned. We have Aloha, Dwayne the Cat Johnson, along for the ride, who is Alpha's fat cat, I suppose. Dare I say?
And not with that HP value. He's not.
No, he's gonna totally carry this party.
He may well. How did you meet Aloha in this fiction?
I met him after the calamity, after returning back to Uldad. First place I returned, of course. You know, it's a lot of chaos going around. There's a lot of stray animals, and he just took to me. He was a little feisty at first. I got a few scratch marks on my legs from this little guy, but I mean, that's the closest I get to affection, because otherwise I'm not trying to talk to anyone else on this boat. They got their own crew.
Okay.
I'm hanging out. I'm gonna relax before everything kicks off.
So he's your one friend in the world, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Braveflux, you are the ranking member here, obviously, in the company, but you haven't been given any directions yet, other than basically to rendezvous with the Kraken's arms, to get yourself on board and make sure that you get these 2 jabronis on board with you, and then basically meet Weiskate and the others in Airport. So how would you like to be spending your time for this first leg of the journey?
Braveflux is a truth teller, and unfortunately Braveflux is making tummy rumbles on the underbelly of boat.
Okay.
So Braveflux is bum parked below the top deck.
Okay.
And
all right.
attempting to make busy deals with any Uplander that is around.
Okay. Well, the crew doesn't really have time for busy deals with you, unfortunately. They are kind of steering clear of the 3 of you, and Rayflox and Alpha, you probably don't know why, but Varen definitely does know why this crew would be avoiding him. Considering, again, it has been maybe a couple of days since he butchered one of their crewmen, who was doing, horrible things. But, all the same, it was one of theirs. And you notice, Varen, that Carviane is absolutely avoiding you. He is usually very rambunctious and hospitable. You've known him for a while. Now he won't even look at you. He just steers absolutely clear of you. Until I think at one point he feels like it's getting a little bit ridiculous, and perhaps he was hoping that you would kind of talk to him and try and smooth things over, or try and apologize or prostrate yourself in some way. But he sort of comes over to you very kind of awkwardly and clears his throat and says, Private Miller, I want to keep this professional. And listen, in a state of emergency such as we are, I'm compelled, under the terms of the Galadian Accord, to see supplies and contractors for the foreign levy, such as yourselves, safely and succinctly deployed to their temporary command post at Aleport. All I can say, Private Miller, is that your friendship with the Commodore has evidently continued to serve you quite well. Still, of all the former Barracuda captains, Wormzone is now Master of the Marauders Guild. Miss Riki, as you know, promoted to Commander, and you, well, you're here. And then he turns to Brayflox and says, Lady Alltalks, of course, you and your retainers are always welcome aboard the Misery. And he kind of gives Varen a sort of sideways glance as he goes to move off. Varen, what do you think of that? How do you feel about that?
He kind of ignores him.
Okay.
He hears everything he's saying. He hears everything Calvain says, but it's just nothing of any importance. So he kind of ignores him. That even like really react.
Okay. At this point, I'd like you all to roll me a d6.
Yeah, we got the 3D dice activated, right?
Yeah.
Let's see how bad I roll. Here we go.
It's a 2. That's okay.
1.
That's a 1.
Yes. I'll just get these rubbish ones out of the way, shall I?
Mike, and a 2. Okay. All right. Cool. So,
Fantastic.
as Calvain goes to move off, you guys are all below deck, right? I think we established that.
No, I'm top deck.
Okay, you're top deck. All right. The other two are below deck. All right. So Alpha and Brayflux, you guys hear this enormous crash coming from the starboard side of the ship. and yeah, Varen will see what's happening here. Let's move you guys over. Actually, let me see if I can roll 20. Come on. Okay.
What was that crazy crash boom?
You hear a massive crash, and you see 3 iron-tipped bowsprits jutting into the upper side of the hull, and another ship has collided with you. And
No.
actually, you know what? You should all probably make a dexterity saving throw to see if you remain on your feet from this one.
Sure thing. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, just straight up and down dex throw. So each of you roll a d20.
+5.
For Alpha, it's +3, and for Varen, it is +2.
Oh,
Yep.
come on.
Because neither of you... Actually, no. Alpha has proficiency in dexterity saving throws. Okay, so that is going to be an 18, a 20, and what did Brayflux get?
10.
Now look, this is how I see it, right? She's got lots of junk on her back.
Yep.
Lots of things strapped, like her center of balance is broken.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you just fall over backwards under the weight of your gobby bag of many holdings.
Oh yeah. Good thing I'm close to the ground already.
Okay, but the other 2 of you do remain on your feet. And I think what Varen is going to see is a harpoon fire from the deck of this ship, which has just collided with you. And you are going to see about half a dozen pirates climbing along this rope and running along the bowsprit and jumping aboard. I don't think you are close enough to see their faces yet. I will get you guys to roll initiative, which is a d20 plus your dex modifier.
11.
Okay, so that's 11 for Brayflux.
I'm gonna bust out my real dice soon.
That is a 17 for Sly
Alright.
and a 13 for Mike. First in the order is going to be Carviane. Carviane, let me see. This is our first round of combat. Carviane is going to... Actually, let me see how far away they are from him. They're about 60 feet away. Okay. Carviane is extremely concerned about his crew member right here, with half a dozen pirates that have just jumped right in front. So, Carviane is going to move up here, I think, and he is going to fire his pistol 3 times at the nearest one of these invading pirates, which for him is going to be 3d20, and that will be a hit on 2 of them, 8 damage, and 16. Okay, so one of these guys is immediately dead. Carviane just runs up the steps, sprints up the steps, and just unloads his pistol right into this guy's chest, and he falls over backwards over the railing into the sea below without making a sound. This guy does not scream, he doesn't shout out, he doesn't even flinch, he just falls backwards. So that is Carviane's turn. And next up is going to be Varen.
All right, so Varen has 30 feet of movement. How do I do the
That's right.
line to see how much?
Okay, so
much
on the
movement I
left-hand
can do?
side, you've got this little ruler here, and you can basically click on where you are and extend it out. Yeah, so you can run up besides Carviane there.
Yeah, I'll do that. So I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
I'll run up the Kev again. The next 30 feet of movement is the extra action, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah, so you can either do that or you can fire with your pistol.
Oh, I can rage and then still move? Perfect, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah, that's fine. You can do
I'll
that.
berserk.
Double check because I'm paranoid.
No, that's cool. Okay. So you are
Yeah, but-
berserking. What does that look like?
He has his axe in like grip with both hands, and he just and Varen just lets out this guttural roar. It's not really to scare anyone or anything, but it's just, he's just fucking furious.
Okay.
Friend, foe. I mean, he can't really tell, but he knows who to direct his axe at, but you can't get anything to him right now.
Okay.
So he's just gonna go make a mad dash 30 more feet.
So as you scream, you're standing right next to Carviane, and Carviane sort of like flinches a little bit as you just like pull out your axe and just yell at the sky with your veins popping out of your neck, and just set off in a sprint past him, almost shoulder checking him as you go past. And he's like, whoa. He's not quite sure whether that's gonna end up being turned against him, but away you go. Okay. All right, cool. Now, over here, these Sargon are actually going to act. It's going to move over this cannon. He's going to load this cannon, and his friend here is going to come help him, and they are going to aim the cannon. You probably can't see exactly where they're aiming it, but they are rotating the cannon to aim. And is he out of your vision? Let me see. Oh no, you guys can definitely see him. Yeah, at least Varen can definitely see him. So Varen, you see a larger albino Sargon up on the deck of this ship that is just kind of barking instructions at the other two in the sort of guttural language of the Sargons. Is he close enough to... Oh, well, that's bad news for you, isn't it? And he's actually going to chuck a spear at you. He's going to wind back, and he is going to throw a spear at a wide arc up over the rigging and seeing if he can... He's going to be taking this attack with disadvantage, but he's going to see if there is perhaps a way that he can hit you, since you're the only one in range. So we'll roll 2d20 and take the lower for disadvantage. 6 plus 3, that's a 9 to hit, and I don't think that's gonna hit with your AC, is it?
No, it's not. My AC is 16, so no.
Okay.
That does not hit.
So this trident sails up above and lands a few feet beside you with a thunk and buries into the deck. Okay, it is now Alpha's turn.
All right, so I've got a speed of 40, so that's my move distance.
The stairs here and here.
Okay.
What you're standing on right now is the stairs like going beneath into the
Yeah,
into
so
the
I'd
hole.
go like out and around, kind of in a sense. Yeah.
This is about 6 feet. You could probably jump that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
I'm gonna
and make me a quick acrobatics check just to see if you can basically make a standing 6-foot jump.
standing 6 foot. Okay, what do I roll for that? For acrobatics check?
So you roll. I'm pretty sure you're proficient in acrobatics, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you roll dexterity plus your modifier plus your proficiency bonus.
Oh yeah, it's my dex modifier, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, no problem. You just kind of like do a half squat and just go hop and
There you go.
do a standing vertical jump of 6 feet up onto the deck, which I don't know if that's possible, but you did it anyway. And then you can run another 35
Let's take that.
Okay.
Something right about there. All right, let's see. I'm gonna throw a dagger
Okay, and who?
at the closest. This guy who's pointing.
This guy?
Right
Okay.
here. Yeah.
All right. Make an attack roll with +5 attack bonus for your dagger.
So it looks like 1d4 plus.
No, that's your damage. So you roll a d20.
Oh, okay, yeah.
+5 versus his armor class. Okay, that is a hit. So it's actually roll damage for me. So 1d4 plus 3. Okay, wow. All right. So you throw this dagger, and it's actually like buries into the side of his neck. And again, he doesn't like shout out or really kind of flinch or respond in a way that you would perhaps expect someone to. Has just been hit in the side of the neck with a dagger, but he holds up a hand to it and makes this sort of like low kind of gurgling sound, like he's got a mouthful of water or soup or something. And you notice actually standing this close to him that this pirate and all the others that have boarded you have these strange blue face markings or tattoos or war paint or something. You're not really sure because Alpha, I don't think you would have seen anything like this before, not being long in the company of heroes and not being a Limsa native yourself. So you see it, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything to you. That is Brayflox's turn now.
Okay, so Brayfox has to basically, was it this direction?
Yeah, I think you could probably get onto either these stairs here or these stairs here just far enough that you've got a line of sight.
I'm not too far away. I'd have to roll at disadvantage. Just double check so I don't accidentally shoot a friend. Haha.
Okay.
This is a bad guy. Yes. I'll try to shoot at disadvantage because the distance is greater than 40.
Okay.
I wanna shoot this bloke.
All right, yeah, sure. He's already got a dagger sticking out the side of his neck. Doesn't seem to perturb him as much as perhaps it should. But yeah, go ahead and make an attack roll with disadvantage.
Okay. Brave Fox will unfurl her gobby musket from her backpack. Unfurling is not really the right description ever, you know. Okay.
No, that works.
Yeah. All right. So I need to roll 1d20, and I'll roll that twice because disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
I rolled twice, right? Which is the highest number? So I got an... Okay,
Yep.
that works out. So
Okay,
yeah, if I...
You
I
definitely hit. If that's +5, you definitely hit. And Varen, I don't even know if you notice because you're raging out so hard, but you feel the displacement of air as this bullet just like whizzes over your shoulder, not a couple of inches from your face. Well, you better roll damage.
Okay, my damage is, for the musket, 1d12 plus 3. That's cool.
He is so dead. So do you want to describe how that happens?
Brayflox will shout,
Time to spill your bladders, mean foes of Brayflox, and then
she will just whip out the gun, as I said, and then just like take one step forward to brace herself, and then against the recoil of her musket, and then this shot will fire out and whiz past, as you had described before, and then like cutting through the side of that person's neck.
Oh wow! Okay, so you effectively just decapitated him. All right.
With a musket. Whoa.
Yeah, with a musket. Cool, great. I mean, he already had a dagger in his throat, so you just kind of got the rest of it done, I suppose.
Blimey. Yeah, I guess so.
That's standing. Okay, it is the crewman's turn. So I need to remember for next time, I made these tokens just like a little bit too big, like a little bit too much negative space around them. Okay, so this guy is going to move, he's going to try to move over to the other side of the deck, because he's got this hulking big Rogaden staring him down. But this Rogaden, with where he was, he is going to get an attack of opportunity as this guy moves. So we will roll. And he has, I believe, +5 to hit. Okay, that actually misses. So this little Lalafell manages to like duck beneath this axe swing as he scurries over to the other side of the deck, and he is going to turn and take a shot with his pistol at the big guy that was just swinging at him. And that is going to be... It's also going to miss. It's going to sort of zip wide. These other two crewmen, they're going to push up, and they are both going to take swings at this big guy. One of them is going to hit and is going to deal... They're going to hit him for 4 damage. And Boxman here, he is going to just kind of like shift his weight a little bit and kind of shuffle this box in his arms, and that's his turn. Now, the Reavers are going to attack. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them here. Are all going to move up on one of the crewmen, and they are just going to go gangbusters on this guy. For 2 of them are going to hit, and they are going to deal a total of 12 damage, which is going to just cut down this poor Mikote here, as these guys all just kind of rush in and start. I really need to sort out these tokens. They all just rush in, and if I can select the right one, if I can just select the right one, if I could just select the right...
I call them nasty end makers. Boo.
Okay. All right, let's stop with the order again. So Carviane, I think, is going to want to move up and protect his crewman, and he is going to take 3 shots at this guy here, and just one of them is going to hit. The other 2 go wide, and he is going to hit for